So you've got the car, you've got the house, you've got all the toys, and you have a corporate job that makes you feel like you have handcuffs on. So how are you ever going to get into position to quit the corporate job? Well, if you have an imbalance in your assets and liabilities, that could very well be what is holding you to that job. So today we're going to talk about how to turn your liabilities into assets. And be sure to stay tuned because the bonus one at the end is actually turning an asset into a better asset. And who doesn't love that? Welcome to The Freedom Strategy. My name is Heather, and I am here to help you turn your dream life into your real life. And if part of your dream life is to be able to quit your job, well, one of the ways to get there is to turn your liabilities into assets. So if you are interested in how to help you achieve your dream life, I do invite you to subscribe and go ahead and hit that notification bell because that way you will be alerted every time I come out with a new video every week. Okay, assets and liabilities. And yes, I've been on both ends of this spectrum many times. But let's start off with something really basic. What is the difference between an asset and liability? Yeah, I know you're probably thinking, Heather, I actually know this already. So just for those of you who don't, the very, very basic definition is money in or money out. So an asset is something that brings money into your pocket, and a liability is something that makes money go out of your pocket. Now, I would say one of the biggest misunderstandings that people have is they actually believe that their home is an asset, which can be true, and we're actually going to get to that in just a little bit, but by definition, it is actually a liability because it is forcing money to go out of your pocket. And that's even true for those of you who are fortunate enough to have a paid off mortgage. You still have things like insurance and electric bills and all kinds of stuff that mean that your house is still costing you money, which means it technically is a liability. So we're going to talk about how to turn that liability into an asset. But I do have 5 other examples of liabilities that you might have that you can turn into assets. They range from very, very small to the big. So let's get going. Now, why do you want to turn your liabilities into assets in the first place? Well, that's kind of obvious. Money, and the more money you keep and bring in, the quicker you will get to the point that you will be able to quit your corporate job. And that's what this is all about. Being able to have the freedom and flexibility to live your life the way you want to live it. And if quitting that job is one of the things you want to do, well, you got to get your assets and liabilities on the right side of the scale. So let's talk about your car. Now, yes, most people do know that that is definitely a liability. It's a necessity for most people, but it is a liability. And they can be very expensive. In fact, for most people, their car is their second largest debt that they have. We have cars because we need to use them. But there are ways to make your car make you money when you're not using them. So how do you turn your car into a moneymaker? Well, one thing you could do is you actually could be an Uber or Lyft driver. A lot of people do that and they make money on the side using their car, and that would turn their car into an asset. But another way to actually make money on your car when you don't actually have to be driving it is there's a service called Turo. I will put a link to it below. What you do is privately rent out your car to other people. So it effectively replaces rental cars for people who come into town. Maybe they're in your town for a business meeting or a conference and they need a car and they'd rather go through a private party than one of the big car rental services. So Turo came into being to match up those people. So it matches up people who are willing to rent out their car with people who need a car to rent. Now again, this is only going to work if you do it during times you don't need your car, but if you can pin down those times and you sign up for Turo, they have all kinds of different plans and insurance plans, and they get a certain percentage based on what plan you take, but it is a way to actually make money on your car when you're not using your car, which effectively could turn that liability into an asset. And that is what we're talking about here. Now, on a similar note, a lot of you have various toys. It can be RVs or ATVs or things like that that you love and you use, but you don't use very much. And of course, they are costing you money. Now, one way to turn that into an asset is you can rent it out. A lot of people buy RVs and they rent them out. And when they rent them out, they make money on it. You can either do it privately through Facebook groups. I would say there's probably a little bit more risk in doing it that way unless you know the person or are familiar with their friends of friends or something like that. But there are services that you can actually use where you list your RV for rent. There are a number of online services that help you out with this. Of course, they take a percentage of it, but it's a little safer. One is called Outdoorsy. One is called, actually, Good Sam even does it. I will also put links to those. So by using a service like that, they will have all the legal paperwork that you need and take deposits and things like that. So it's a little less risky to do it that way. But this is a great way to take one of your liabilities that you really do love and use, but you don't use very much, into something that is actually generating money. Perfect example, we go to music festivals all the time, and there's one we go to every year, and there's a person next to us. They actually bring in their RV, they park it, they set it up, so the renter does not even drive it. They set it up for the music festival, and it's there for 4 or 5 days, and they make a lot of money on that transaction. So they cover their cost for the RV for the entire year by renting it out at that one music festival. So there are lots of different ways you can do it. And that way you don't feel like that fun toy that you love is just nothing but a money pit. And we have not done that with our RV, but we do it with our sailboat. Those of you who follow this channel, you know we recently bought an awesome catamaran because we're gonna sail around the world. But in the meantime, until we're ready to go, we actually put that catamaran in charter, and we have a company that handles it, and they handle all of the charter business. But we actually make a decent amount of money on that. So it works out really, really well. And it most definitely had turned what is often a liability for a lot of people into an asset for us. Okay, since we're talking about RVing and boats, this next one is on the small end of things, but I have seen people do this. I have not personally done this, but they have camping gear, for example, tents and safety items and camping cookware that sits in their closet 95% of the year, but other people are gonna go camping and they don't wanna have to go out and buy it all. So I've seen this on Facebook a fair amount. People will have a camping package, and it can be a tent and sleeping pads and a little cookware setup, and they'll rent it out for $100 a day on these Facebook groups. Now, obviously, the smaller the item, the riskier it is that someone might actually walk away with it, but you could require a deposit. There are a number of ways around that. But this way, you can turn in something that literally is gathering dust in your closet for most of the year into something that's bringing in a few extra $100, which turns that from a liability to an asset, which allows you to generate an income on something that's just sitting there. And again, every little bit helps. The more that you're able to generate positive cash flow with all of your things, the sooner you will really be able to live that life of freedom that you are after. Okay, so now we're gonna go from something small like camping equipment to something big, but a lot of you either have or have your eyes on getting a vacation home, right? How great is that? Like, I'm in Arizona, it's hot, hot, hot here. Right now it's really hot, actually. But we have a vacation home up in northern Arizona. It's only a 2-hour drive, and it's actually 25 degrees cooler up there. It's nice. But how do you swing it and make it not a liability? 10 years ago when we bought it, I decided to try to put it on vacation rental by owners, now Airbnb, just to see, is there any way to turn this into a positive cash flow situation? And it works really, really well. I've been pleasantly surprised. I actually only have it on VRBO because it is rented out as much as I want it, and then we can use it whenever we want it. And it is a positive cash flow situation, and that is even after taxes and after insurance and after all of the expenses. And that is a vacation home we would have had regardless, but now I've managed to turn that from a liability into an asset and be able to enjoy it as well. So now we're gonna go from your vacation house to your actual house. And yes, you already heard me say your actual house is a liability, but it's a necessity. But there are ways to monetize your house. Now, a lot of people over the summertime or other times of the year, they will go on vacations for a couple weeks, maybe a month, you can rent out your house during that time and you can make money on your house during that time. Another great time to do it is if you are in an area that has a local event that draws in a lot of tourists. For example, here in Arizona, we have the Barrett-Jackson Auto Show. There's the big golf tournament in January, and people can rent out their houses for just a week or maybe 2 weeks when people are in town for a lot of money just because that event is in town. So look around your town, look around where you are and see what event brings in people, and consider renting out your house just during that time and going on your own vacation, and probably it'll pay for your vacation and then some. So the more you can do that, the more you can flip the balance from your house being a liability into an asset. It gets even better if you can rent it out seasonally. You can usually go somewhere else and find something cheaper, but rent out your place during peak season. And finally, along those same lines, I talked about this in my last video up here on assets that make cash flow. We have set up very deliberately to have a house and a boat. And when we're on the house, we rent out the boat. And when we're on the boat, we rent out the house. And that way, no matter where we are generating positive cash flow. And again, our liabilities have become assets, which opens up all kinds of possibilities for us. Now, I'm not saying that this is easy. It's not easy. It has taken me years of planning and thought and working through different things to find out not only what works from a cash flow standpoint, but what also works from a livability standpoint for our lifestyle. That is something that is going to be personal to you, but I'm trying to give you ideas just to get you thinking and say, well, let me try this one. And let me first start with my camping equipment before I'm willing to rent out my RV. But the more you turn your liabilities into assets, the closer you will be to being able to quit that corporate job if that is what you are after. Now, I told you I had a bonus idea. This is the one where I'm going to tell you how to turn an asset into a better asset. But it's a little bit controversial. I'm a little bit controversial, so that shouldn't surprise any of you. And what it is you turn your 401k or part of your 401k into a different asset that will actually potentially make you more money. Now, I know a lot of people might say that's a poor choice to use your 401k to do something else with it. Speaking of poor choices, I visited my dad today and we were talking about some of the poor choices that I have made throughout my life. And he did say, I will have to say, Heather, you have somehow managed to do quite well with all of your poor choices. So maybe this is one of those, I don't know. But we did this the first time we bought a boat back in 2018. So the way this structure works, where you can use part of your 401k to actually purchase an asset that makes money, what you're doing, first of all, it's called a ROBS, a rollover business startup. And what you're doing is you're effectively creating a business that is actually legitimately a business. It is IRS approved, but you have to have a business. You create a business using your 401k money. Now, whatever that business is, if you do it right, will generate more money than if you're having your money sit in the stock market, especially right now. So if you start a business that actually makes an income, you can use this money with no penalty, no early withdrawal, no taxes paid on it until you actually withdraw that money back out. Then you will pay whatever applicable taxes there are, but there still is not going to be a penalty, and turn it into a business. And there are many advantages, and I'm going to come out with a video soon because I've had a lot of people ask me about this. I have a link below to some information that will help you if you're interested. You're also welcome to email me, heather@thefreedomstrategy.com. But you start this business and you buy an asset that helps you generate cash flow. That is what we did the first time we bought a boat. We used the money, we started a business, and we put the boat in charter. And so we purchased the boat with it. Now, we subsequently sold the boat, and so we made money on the boat. I know that's a little unusual. And then we also made money while we had it on the charter. So it was a legitimate business, and it actually did make money for us. In fact, it did make more money for us than the other money that we had left in the 401k. So you do have to be diligent. You have to know what you're doing. You have to actually run the business, but it is a great way to tap into the asset you already have, you've already earned, and turn it into something more interesting, but also potentially financially better. So I am very curious what you think about that option. Put something in the comments below. Let me know what you think of it. And let me know, of all of those ideas, which one are you most likely to try? Or maybe you have a different option. I would love to hear other possibilities for turning liabilities into assets. Thank you for joining me on The Freedom Strategy. I will see you next time.